Hello, I'm Pixel and welcome back to my channel. So as a quick warning, before you get into this video, I'm going to be talking about some medical stuff, some slightly squeamish things about joints popping in and out. So if that makes you uncomfortable, feel free to pop on some music and enjoy the rest of the video in your own time. So today's video is going to be a little different. I want to talk about hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and how it's affected both me and the way I draw, the way I paint and express myself through my art. So this is one of those sort of things that it started off very gradual. It was something that I didn't know about for a very long time. I didn't know what was wrong with me. For the most part of my life, it didn't affect me at all. I didn't really notice. The symptoms of hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is hypermobility, which, if you don't know what that is, it basically means that my joints, they can extend past the normal range of motion. So if you've heard of people who are double jointed, you would kind of get a good idea of what that means. Someone who can bend their joints back in the opposite direction they should be able to. And that sounds just fine, except when you bend your joints past the normal range of motion, you are damaging those joints. It can be extremely painful over prolonged hyperextension of those joints. Another common symptom of hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is frequent dislocations and subluxations. A subluxation, or subluxing, is when you partially dislocate the joint. For example, I can partially dislocate my shoulder at will. Even just moving my shoulder in a certain direction, it can make it pop in and out of joint. It's not the most pleasant sensation, for obvious reasons. So for the longest time, it was never something that affected me. I knew that I had hypermobile joints. I knew that I could be super flexible, but I didn't know how that would affect me later on in my life. Until about in my second year at university, all of a sudden my wrist started hurting, and I just didn't have the energy to get out of bed to do things. I was exhausted constantly, and being that I was in university, I just assumed that that was a result of being in university, because it is a common thing that you hear, people saying, oh, I'm exhausted, I'm overworked, I've burnt myself out, I'm really tired from all these sorts of things that are going on in my life because I'm at university, because they've been partying, or because they've been working really hard, because they've been pulling all-nighters, because they've had to get up every single day to go into the university and do their work. So I just assumed for a long time that it was a result of university that I was feeling so terrible. But the thing about my wrist is I should have really taken that as a sign that I needed to pull back. Because instead of pulling back, I continued to work while my wrist was in pain and put myself in even more pain. Eventually I realized that this was not normal. There is no way it was normal to be in this much pain all the time. And nothing I could do would make it go away. I took so much paracetamol, so much ibuprofen. I did everything I could possibly do to try and help my wrist. I put it in a splint, I put ice on it, I put warmth on it. I tried to do anything to take the pain away, and I couldn't do anything. Eventually I went and saw a doctor, and they had no idea what was wrong with my hand. They looked at it, they poked and prodded, and they couldn't find anything that would be an indication of inflammation or anything. The only symptom that they could find was that it hurt. And so they told me to just rest it for a month and it will go away. And a month later, I was still in pain. And I went back and said, my wrist still hurts. And they were like, okay, well, I'll send you off to go get an x-ray. And I went and I got an x-ray. They looked at it and they said, nothing's wrong with you. Give it a rest and the pain will go away. And the pain didn't go away. It didn't matter if I did nothing or if I exercised. It still hurt exactly the same, if not more. And I kept going back to my doctor. I kept going back and saying, look, this still hurts. You have to do something. And what they did was they gave me some more painkillers. Because they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they didn't really care what was actually wrong with me. It didn't matter what it was, just they were going to treat it exactly the same. And I kept fighting their decision because I wanted to know what was wrong with me. Why wouldn't I want to know what was wrong with me? Because pain like this isn't normal. And eventually, while searching on the internet for all the possible things that could be causing this pain, eventually my friend started talking about her diagnosis of hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and she started talking about all these symptoms. And then she said, you might have this. And I said, yeah, sure. I completely denied ever possibly having something like that because I'm not that paranoid. I'm not that paranoid to just pick up a diagnosis because my friend happens to have it and she seems to agree that I have it. So I went and I actually looked into it just to say, okay, I looked at it and it's clearly not me. And something clicked. It's like, well, you have to have this extra range of motion in your joints. And I was like, well, I don't have, oh. My fingers bend completely backwards. That's, okay, but that's just one thing. That's just one thing. And you need to be able to touch the floor with both your palms flat. And it's like, I can't do, oh, I can do that. Oh. Well, there's got to be more things to it. And the more I went down the list, of the hypermobile joints, the more I went down the list of symptoms of comorbid disorders, the more clear it became to me that this was what I had. But that was only half the battle. Because yes, I eventually convinced myself, but how the hell do you convince a doctor? Which is really disappointing, because of all people, you'd think the doctors would be interested in trying to help me figure out what the problem was, but consistently they have shown me that they weren't. That they just weren't interested in finding out what the actual problem was. And when I went to go see the rheumatologist at my doctor's, he actually yelled at me for wanting to know what was wrong with me. He said, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whatever it is, we're going to treat it by doing physiotherapy. And yes, physiotherapy is a treatment for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Except the physiotherapy that I had been given involved yoga. In other words, stretching the joints, stretching the tendons, pushing my body past the point it's supposed to go. Instead of just strengthening muscles, I was weakening the joints. And I just said, enough. I went to my doctor and I just said, I absolutely need to be sent to a rheumatologist. One that is not just an in-house sort of, I work with joints doctor, a proper rheumatologist who has knowledge about hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I need to go to see someone who is going to listen to me. Instead of just dismissing my symptoms and saying, it doesn't matter what it is, I need someone who is actually going to be interested in finding out what is wrong with me. Because when it comes to my joint pain, it isn't just in my wrist anymore, it's in so many places around my body. And trying to do art with a problem in your wrist, in the wrist of the arm that you draw with, it's difficult. And it's disheartening because you feel like you have all this creativity, you have all this passion, and it's limited. It's limited by pain, by your own body, and you feel kind of betrayed. Because I know I'm capable of doing better. I know I could draw for days on end if you give me enough time and water. But I can't. Because it hurts. I could talk about hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome for hours on end, but I'm afraid this is the end of the video. If there's more you'd like to learn about hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, about the methods I've learnt to cope with my condition and make it easier for me to continue doing art, then feel free to leave a comment below requesting more on this subject. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed my painting. I hope that this helps you in some way, and I hope that you've learnt something, either about my painting process or just simply about hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. If there's anything you want me to talk about in a future video, leave a comment below, and thank you for watching. Stay safe, everyone.